What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to do with you guys. This is the WE Knives 920A, and I'm going to show you guys the box. Blocao. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce this word. Blocao. Makes me think of cacao, like the natural form of chocolate, or I don't know what that is. Anyways, there's a 920A and 920B. This is the 920A. The 920B is the exact same thing, but a black bolster instead of a tumbled bolster. Beautiful knife. This knife was sent to me by the Apex Pass-Around Group, so by extension, the manufacturer, WE themselves. As usual, I'll try not to let that affect my review, but it should be pretty easy considering I don't get to keep the knife. Before we get started here, I will remind everybody, you can open up the description to my videos, any of them, this one, any video that you're watching. You can check out my merch here with the Redbubble link. You can check out my Patreon if you'd like to support the channel. And you can also check out my sister channel. Did you know I have a second YouTube channel? It's called Silent Complex. Pretty cool. And then also I've got tons and tons and tons of recommendable knives and gear, all categorized out so it's easy to find, including some of my favorite budget knives. So if you have an itch and you need to scratch it like everybody else in this knife enthusiast or EDC enthusiast world, feel free to use my description. It's pretty handy. Anyways, let me go ahead and get a measurement for you guys. This is a big knife and it's got some different odd things about it. Can't wait to talk about it. Overall length, actually over 9¼ inches. This is a big knife. From tip to scale, you're looking at 4¼ inches of blade and almost 4 inches of cutting edge. 3.8 inches of cutting edge. This knife is big. How about up against the Ontario Rat Model 1? Rat 1 coming in at 8.6 inches overall. So you can see they're pretty big, even compared to the Rat 1. How about up against the Spyderco PM2? Spyderco PM2 is coming in at 8.3 inches overall. How about up against the Benchmade Group Tillion, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue? Ritter Hogue coming in at 8 inches overall. And last but not least, the Spyderco Para 3. Spyderco Para 3 is coming in at 7¼ inches overall. I'm actually going to give you a bonus size comparison. I don't know why I'm getting so excited about it. Just because it's so big. Every now and then I get the SOCOM Elite out to compare. SOCOM Elite is, if you don't count the glass breaker, is like 9.1 inches overall. So you can see there it's actually bigger than the SOCOM Elite, if that gives you an idea of size. Huge knife. So how's the action on this guy? The action is actually very smooth. Here, I'll give you a demonstration. It's a lock back, very interesting locking mechanism. You can see there the back tang of the blade. Actually, eventually it gets to a point where there's friction up against this little rectangular area right here. And as you continue to push up, it actually pushes this up, right? There's tension back here. And then that front part of this rectangle falls nicely into that notch right there. And let me tell you, that is quite the strong locking mechanism. Very, very strong. Upon disengagement, which is just like a regular lockback, you can see there the action is actually completely fall shut. It's swinging, right? It's met with resistance down here and resistance up here. So when it comes down here, you actually have to push it down into place. And when it meets resistance up here, you have to click it. So can you actually deploy it? This area down here actually creates for a nice springy sort of, it's not spring loaded, but it creates the, it's a little heavier than the same type of idea. Like on a titanium frame lock, the detent, you build up force back here, you break the detent and it deploys. Same idea, right? It's just not a detent ball. It's the friction that's built up there at the beginning. So what happens is you can use it to spring the blade out, but watch what happens. It gets stuck on that point right there and it can bounce back. Now I'm holding it straight, surface is level here, so it bounces. Now imagine if I decided to deploy it like this, right? It can fall back down on your fingers. Not a great example, but I'll go up. Right? It can come back down on your fingers, especially if you whip it really hard and it really recoils. Is it possible to overcome that secondary point of friction? Yes, but it took me a while to get to that point, and I find that I have to actively think about it when I pull it out of my pocket. It's not like the Ritter Hogue that just deploys. It's not like the PM2 that just deploys. No, there's no extra area where I have to think about it. And with this knife, I actually have to think about it. So I found that the only truly safe way to deploy this knife is simply to wheel it around, and push it into place so that I know for sure that it's locked in. Now, once it's locked in, it is locked in. That locking system in terms of strength is awesome. I absolutely trust it. It's got to be one of the best. I mean, this is definitely one of the best backlocks that's out there. Standard backlock is just running the tang into, or running this backlock bar into the tang of the blade. This is actually falling into a notch, right? So there is, I mean, it's bank vault solid. I'm not going to say that it's, you know, going to give the triad block a run for its money, but in terms of the strength that you could, any amount of strength you could ever need from a folding knife, I think you're plenty over the line with a locking system like that. But I don't 100% trust this sort of deploy. Like, this is not a knife that I would say, yeah, you'll just get used to it, because you really have to push it hard to get it to overcome that. Right? So it's a little bit different. It's not something that people are going to be used to. It definitely is different. But you can get it to release with one hand. And it is definitely, once you get used to slow opening it, it is one that you can manipulate with one hand. So, but I want people to be cognizant of that. And I know 100% that this is a knife that is going to cause a couple accidents with fingers. So if I can stop as many of those as possible by warning people beforehand, then that's why I did that. Anyways, let's talk about weight and materials here. So while I'm pulling the battery out of my scale to get it to reset because it's freaking out again, I'll let you know that the knife is primarily made of titanium and carbon fiber. On the scales, you can see we've got this beautiful shred carbon fiber and a beautiful bolster that's got a dark tumbled finish on it. Everything is nicely contoured. The seam here is just perfect. I mean, WE's fit, it's no secret that WE has incredible fit and finish, but they just seem to get better and better and better. I'm really impressed with this. I couldn't find a single flaw on the entire knife, and WE is kind of like, you know, they've kind of let the world know, like, here's what you should expect for fit and finish for the money, right? Dollar for dollar, their fit and finish is just unbelievable. It's so good. Love that. Love to see that it's translating really well into new models. So we've got a big knife, not super insanely thick, but definitely thicker than knives like the Para 3 or PM2. In terms of carry profile, really, I mean, it's not so much height that's going to drag you down here. I mean, yeah, the PM2 is a little bit taller. It's just overall thickness and length, right? It's just big. It's a really big knife. It's not only that, that's gonna feel it in your pocket. I mean, in terms of profile, it's not, as far as big knives go in the pocket, profile is not terrible, but it is heavy, coming in at, well, there you go, 181 grams or 6.38 ounces. Now, that's not the worst thing in the world for a folding knife. 6.5 ounces. In fact, I kind of like some heft, but right, that's going to be too big and too heavy for most people. My full-tie XM18 is only 8¼ inches, and it's almost exactly the same weight. So not terrible, but definitely way bigger than most people are going to prefer. If you are going to church or a cocktail party or a little kid's birthday party, this is probably an inappropriate knife. I understand everybody carries what they want, but if you're outside or you're camping or, you wear a heavy pant material, then this is going to be, more your style, and you're going to be okay with that. Also, first and foremost, make sure that it is legal where you live. In a lot of places, you can't carry a blade over 3 inches, and I think it's even over 2 inches in some areas. I don't know. But this is over 4 inches. Uncontroversially, over 4 inches. It's very easy for people to look at this and go, that's a weapon, right? So there are definitely places out there. I'm not saying I agree with those laws, but I'm saying there are definitely places out there where it's not okay to carry something like this. So make sure you know where you're at. Anyways, let's take a look at the materials here. Again, up close. Love WE's show side pivot. The WE logo just looks great there. All these grays and blacks in contrast with each other, they just look fantastic. I love that. You can see the standoffs are polished, which adds a nice contrast to the blade. I'm going to say that this is a very aggressive clip point blade, which is, by the way, coming in, I want to say it's 150 thousandths, 155 thousandths maybe. Let's try. Oh, and it's definitely not 140. That's not right. I've always said I need to get a new one of these. Perhaps I should upgrade my scale and my calipers at the same time. Boy, what a mess. Can you zero out? I'm pushing a button that says 0, and it's just actively refusing to go to 0. Still saying 144. I know for a fact that this is at least 150 thousandths. So we're going to try one more time here. Still want to say 146. Well, I think it might be time for some new calipers. In any case, this is probably around 150 thousandths. Put it up against the Spyderco PM2, one that I know to be thinner at 140 to 145 thousandths, though it does look pretty similar. So it's somewhere in there. Still a very big, very heavy blade. You can see flat running out about 65% or so. Then we have this very aggressive swedge, and it actually comes out to a really fine tip, which I gotta be honest, you know, PM2 is also notorious for having a fine tip, and it actually looks a little bit thicker at the tip than this guy. This knife is clearly meant for outdoor hard use, and while there are plenty of situations that would call for a long, pointy tip, I actually would prefer to see a stronger tip on a blade like this. It is made out of S35VN, which is, to my knowledge, the strongest or toughest, not strongest, toughest of the stainless steels. Not the toughest steel out there. In terms of stainless steel composition, I believe S35VN has the best stainless to toughness ratio out there, but I could be wrong. Please correct me if I'm wrong. For that reason, though, considering where this knife is meant to be used, I would kind of prefer a blade shape that had a little more strength at the tip, or at least a flat that carried out further and maybe not so much this aggressive clip point. But it's not everybody thinks exactly like me, and not everybody needs the exact same style of blade for the exact same types of tasks that they assume they will be using this knife for. So I suppose that's kind of up in the air. The blade is attractive, and it is kind of different. You can see here it's not a continuous curvature. It actually goes straight for a while and then takes a sort of abrupt turn. It does get reasonably thin behind the edge, actually thinner than you might expect. It will not be a laser beam, but it absolutely will cut. In fact, it'll cut better than a lot of knives that start out at 150 thousandths and have similar blade shapes and then have this amount of room to drop down towards the cutting edge. The edge was done very, very well. It's nice and even and uniform, and everything about the blade is even and uniform. You can see the maker's name right here. I'm not familiar with this maker, but of course, feel free to look them up yourselves if you'd like to. Let's take a look here at the finished work on the scales. Everything is just perfectly rounded off. I mean, it almost feels like I don't have to say that because this is a Wii knife, but ergonomically, this knife is just fantastic. You are kind of forced into one position given where these the choil is and back here, but it's not so pointy that I feel absolutely trapped there. I do feel like I can move around a little bit, right? You've got a little bit of freedom considering how big the handle is, but lots of, I don't know if I want to call it stopping power. Your hand is not going to slip off this knife during use. Absolutely. It's very comfortable. It's definitely made for the human hand, and I like it. It fills out the hand well. Let's go ahead and check the size of the hardware. Get out my handy dandy Ouya bit selector and Ouya 1/4-inch magnetic driver. Two items that I can recommend to everybody because they're awesome and super inexpensive, right? Very cool. They are down in the description with all that other stuff I showed at the beginning of the upload. I'm going to guess both the pivot and the handle hardware are T8. Let's go ahead and give it a shot here on the non-show side. T8 on the pivot and T8 on the body screws. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Everybody needs to be moving to T8 or higher. I don't think there's any pocket knife that should have smaller than T8 for handle screws or pivot hardware. It's just so much easier like that. I really appreciate it. 2 screws on this side. 3 screws on this side, holding in the back lock bar and then the back spacer back here. And then 3 screws on the other side. I think that's perfectly acceptable. I'm happy with it. Lanyard area back here, it's part of the back spacer. That's fine. It's unobtrusive and it looks nice. I appreciate that. The back spacer looks like it's part of the lock bar back here, and it's also got that sort of concrete finish on there, and I like that. You can see there the titanium actually runs underneath the scale, so it's carbon fiber, then titanium, and then I'm going to guess this is a steel lockback, and then the back spacer I'm also going to guess is steel, but it might be titanium. I'm not 100% sure. The pocket clip, I got to say, while completely functional, looks a little bit odd. It's not a small clip, it's just that the knife is so big that it kind of looks out of place. I kind of would have preferred a wider clip and one that looked like it went more aesthetically with the knife. But functionally, it's going to be just fine. It's got 2 screws up here, and it'll carry about right here. So really, considering how big the knife is, that's all that's sticking up out of your pocket. It's nothing. The rest of the knife is much the same as the front, right? The knife came perfectly centered, so no issue there. It also has no blade plate. It's absolutely solid, as is what I would guess with a locking system like that. So really, because here's the thing. This knife comes in around $265, and I gotta say, considering the materials used, the fit and finish on it, I don't think I really have a problem with that. Where I have a problem, and yeah, that's going to be too expensive for most people. I completely understand. I'm not saying like this knife is a steal. If you don't buy it, then you're unintelligent. No, I mean, if you're going after something like this, then that's a good amount of money to pay for this. Even considering that it's made in China, we're looking at titanium and we're looking at shred carbon fiber. It's been put together well. It's been contoured. There's been extra care to make sure that all the tolerances meet up. No blade play. It's centered using premium blade materials. It's all there, right? What bothers me is the likeliness for something bad to happen on deployment. See, there's a chance I'm giving it just as much, if not a little more power than what I normally see. Even there, it still wants to, yeah, and then you can kick it and it's like spring loaded to come back down. I don't have to give nearly that much to the PM2, the Rat, or the especially like the Ritter Hogue, just barely anything, right? I'll give double the power to this guy and it still wants to bounce back out. I'm being honest. Like, this knife is not one that, if you're looking for a fidgety thumb stud opener, this is not the knife for you. Now, if you regularly open your knives, if you wheel them open like this and you're okay with that and you like that, because I'll tell you, that is satisfying. This right here, that feels good. I'm not going to lie. And so does this, right? Even if you're doing it with one hand like this. It feels secure, bank vaulty. There is a charm to that, right? But if you're looking for a fidgety thumb stud deployer, or you're one that likes to just, like me, you want your knives to basically pull from the pocket, deploy, do their job, and you want to put it away with minimal risk to your fingers, and you don't have to, put a bunch of brain power into it because it's a tool. It should just work, right? Then this isn't going to work for you. In fact, I love the knife. I love how it looks. I'm okay with the price. Not the best price in the world. I'm okay with it. I can see how they got there. But I just feel like this is... And I've had people tell me in the comment section when I unboxed it that this knife has bit a few fingers. So for that reason, I'm just... There's a lot of people that are going to be made happy by this knife and are going to be completely satisfied with their purchase, right? If you can get around that part, you're going to love this knife. For everybody else, I cannot openly recommend this knife. It's a great idea. It's just that opening, that bounce back is really not going to be the best thing for a lot of people. And I mean, it's one of those things where I could see myself, no matter, despite all the different knives that I've handled, how good I think I am with knives and manipulation of locks and deployment mechanisms, right? Whatever my experience measures out to, I can see myself accidentally getting cut by this knife substantially faster than almost anything else that I have ever had on my table. And again, that doesn't mean that this is a bad knife. Like all things, you will adapt to it, but be cognizant of it. Understand that. If you're looking for a large knife, you like lockbacks, you appreciate high-end materials, good fit and finish, and you regularly wheel your knives open slowly, then this is going to be a great knife. Other than that, specifically, probably not going to be for you. So like I said, that's why I can't openly recommend it. In any case, though, this is really, really cool, and I was happy for the opportunity to take a look at it. That's going to be pretty much it, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, take a look at some of these other videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on this Metal Complex logo right here and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.